Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
All right. In today's episode, we are going through every first-year head coach from last season and deciding whether we now feel better, worse, or about the same about them compared to the day they were hired. And we'll start kind of rapid fire with the G5 coaches, and then in a few minutes here, we'll get to the Power 5. But let's see. Trey, get us started.
Yeah, I'll lead us off. Yeah, Michael DeSormo from Louisiana. And it's one of those guys that it's always hard to gauge the coaches after kind of the program builder like Billy Napier was. So I'm going to say I'm about the same. I wasn't overly high on him to start. They lost 4 games last year in conference after only losing 2 in the prior 3 years. And I was kind of reading that the quarterback room this spring has been injury riddled, so not ideal there.
Nope. All right, moving on to Ken Wilson at Nevada. Took over after Jay Norvell left for the Colorado State job, and Jay Norvell did a good job there at Nevada. Everybody kind of knew, I think, this would be a tough job considering, there's a lot of players leaving, new coach. So to me, that I had pretty low expectations for Wilson, but they lost 10 games in a row to finish the season. So I would say I'm a little lower. Didn't exactly turn out too well on the field. I expected better than 2-10.
Fair enough. All right. Stan Drayton at Temple. He was a longtime running backs coach, most recently at Texas. And I feel about the same. They were expected to be terrible this past season, and they were arguably slightly less terrible. They went 3-9, had some bad luck in close games, but that was, about par for the course.
Yep. All right, moving on to Clay Helton at Georgia Southern. I feel better than when he was hired. I wasn't too high on him, especially since he was going to have to overhaul the offense to a new system. But he led a really good offense with Kyle Van Treese, went to a bowl game. They beat a ranked team that last year. I guess the only problem looking forward is they rank near the bottom of the country now in returning production. So I'm really interested to see year 2, but I'm higher than I was.
Yep. Another one here definitely got to feel better is Jim Mora at UConn. I mean, how can you not feel way better? He took over a team that was 1-11 the year prior. They barely beat Yale that year, and boom, he took them to a bowl game. They had 6 wins, beat some good teams, including a win over Fresno. So that was a heck of a coaching job. I mean, don't even look at the recruiting; just pay attention to what happened on the field.
No, it's not about that.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. A similar one here, Jerry Kill at New Mexico State. Got to feel way, way better. New Mexico State was projected dead last, 131st in SP+. They ended up winning a bowl game. They went 7-6, just A+ first season.
It really was. Unfortunately, on the flip side, Timmy Chang at Hawaii, I'm feeling worse. It's unfortunate, and I say that because I'm old enough, we're all old enough, us three are, to remember watching him play. We always pulled for his Hawaii teams back in the day. I mean, he was dealt a tough hand with the Todd Graham mess and a period where they're not playing in their stadium as it's being redone. But 3-10 last year, they don't return hardly. Let's just say they're
not returning a lot
today, Junior.
Yeah, I tried to avoid the double negative there, but
yeah,
they're the bottom of the country in returning production.
That they are. All right, I'm going to go to Don Brown at UMass. I feel worse about this one. He took over a 1-11 team, and it didn't improve them at all. He went 1-11 again. So they had arguably the worst offense in the country. There's no talent coming in. It's just hard to picture. And their defense wasn't quite good enough either. So not good for Don Brown.
All right, I'll keep the pessimism train rolling. We got Jay Norvell, as you mentioned, going to Colorado State. I definitely feel worse. Like I said, just they were slightly favored to make a bowl game. According to the Vegas odds before the season, they ended up 3-9, arguably the worst offense in college football. They were right there too. So not good. You know, you think that, the transfers he brought over, they'd be a little bit better.
Sonny Dykes at Louisiana Tech. I feel a little worse. They went 3-9 last year, actually regressed from the prior Skip Holtz team. I will say they had a couple overtime losses. So, if the luck bounces their way this year, and if Cumbie's able to kind of really implement his prior Texas Tech offense, maybe he can get back in my good graces.
Yep. All right, let's move on to John Summerall at Troy. Definitely got to feel better about him. Took over a 5-7 team. Then he led them to 12 wins this year. They finished ranked. So, yeah, a good recruiting class coming in. I mean, it's looking good for Troy. He did a great job.
Yeah, he'll be a candidate for some bigger jobs pretty quickly if he keeps it up there.
Yep.
Going to Joe Moorhead at Akron. I will say worse because I have a pretty high opinion of Joe Moorhead, especially going down in class, taking a MAC job. They went 2-10. I just thought he would have more of an immediate impact on offense, and they're not projected to be much better this year, per SP plus. So I'm feeling worse because I thought he'd get it going quicker there.
Yeah. Mike McIntyre at Florida International. I'm feeling a little worse. Butch Davis was able to get a little life into the program in his tenure, but it's a really tough gig. He couldn't really sustain any success or make it, way better. But I've never been super high on McIntyre. They finished 129th in SP plus last year, and they really just got destroyed in their losses. It's going to be a tough hill to climb there.
That it is. All right. Jeff Tedford at Fresno State. I feel better about Jeff Tedford. He led them to a 10-win season. Got off to a slow start, but they just got healthy kind of midway through the season, and then they won a lot of games to finish the year off. I think it was 9 in a row. Now they were expected to be good this year, so it's not like 10 wins was just some great season for them. But that was a good. And then the recruiting's about on par with what Kalen DeBoer did before him. So just keeping the even train, keeping it the same as DeBoer had it, that's success. Like, that's good. So if you can keep that up, I feel good.
Okay. The last G5 program we have, Rhett Lashley at SMU. I feel about the same. They went 7-6. I expected a slight step back from where Sonny Dykes had them, and that's pretty much what you saw. Now they're losing Tanner Mordecai at quarterback, which is not great. But the tough teams are leaving the American, of course, 3 schools leaving, and SMU is bringing in a pretty big transfer haul, a solid class of transfers. So, I expect them to be, again, not quite where Sonny Dykes had them, but not terribly far behind.
Yep, I agree.
All right, moving on to some of the bigger programs here, and I'll kind of start off the
and we don't get any bigger than this.
Yeah, baby.
This is it's true. Blue blood. Duke's Mike Elko. I'm feeling better, and I mean, how can you not? Low expectations for me. First year goes 9-4 with a bowl win, and the three of their losses were by 3 or less. So it actually could have been way better. Just instant improvement. They were 113th in SP plus the year before. He got them to 48th at the end of this past year. They got Riley Leonard is young at quarterback. He played great. So there's definitely optimism for going forward.
Yeah, you gotta, no doubt, feel better. Turn 3-9 into 9-4, and I don't care how weak the schedule was. It was a pretty weak schedule, but hey, that's fantastic. Getting 9 wins is amazing at Duke. So I don't, recruiting isn't great, but it never is at Duke. As long as you can somehow turn it into wins on the field, that's all that matters there.
Yeah, Kansas got all the publicity for being the big kind of crazy turnaround because they started out undefeated, right? They started out 5-0, 6-0, whatever it was,
and they beat Duke.
So Kansas was 14 points. Yeah, they beat Duke. Yeah, good point. Kansas was 14 points better than expected per SP plus. So that was pretty big gap. Well, Duke was 23.5 points better.
Wow.
Than SP plus projected. So it's insane what he did.
That's crazy. Wow. Didn't know it was that big.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to another ACC team. We have Tony Elliott at Virginia. I wasn't expecting, I don't think a lot of people were expecting much from Virginia this past season. But they were worse than I thought they'd be. And I think they only won 3 games. And then this is bringing in the second worst class in the ACC. That's not going to really, as far as recruiting, that's not going to help much. So not a whole lot of positives going on here. I've got to feel worse about Tony Elliott.
Yeah, I feel worse. The team didn't play well, but obviously we'll be cheering for them moving forward with the tragedy they've had to deal
Yeah.
with. So hopefully better things are ahead for them.
Yeah, I feel worse, especially now that they lost Brennan Armstrong to transfer, wideout, Billy Kemp, their right receiver, to transfer. They're near the bottom of the country in returning production, so not great signs in Charlottesville.
Okay, Jake Dickert at Washington State. He, of course, was the interim that was promoted to head coach, and I'm leaning towards better, but I'll say it's not enough to. I'll just keep it at about the same. Team went 7-6, slightly better than expected. The hire of Eric Morris from Incarnate Word at offensive coordinator, I really liked the idea there.
Yep.
Didn't necessarily pay dividends, but I'm okay with now. He's gone. He's been hired as a head coach, and his next hire to replace him is the 27-year-old Ben Arbuckle from Western Kentucky, a Zach Kitley disciple. So again, I like that hire. I like the where he's going offensively, trying to keep that kind of air raid going there. So that's why I'm kind of liking him, but maybe the improvement wasn't quite enough to feel a ton better.
I hear you. I'm feeling an ounce better, just because I was a little on the fence last year. Along with that offensive coordinator, he brought in Cameron Ward, who's back this year. Maybe he'll take a little bit more of a step forward. And last year they lost to 2 top 15 teams by a whisker. And they really collapsed in the first one they played against Oregon. Like if they won that, they would have been 5-0. Maybe the back end is a little bit different. And I think Dickert's defense should be a strength this year. So I'm a little bullish.
I'm about the same on Dickert. Off on the field was maybe slightly better than I expected, but pretty on par actually with it. Honestly, but it was pretty close. And they didn't finish the season well. Obviously, the bowl game was a disaster. They got smoked by Fresno, and then they have by far the worst recruiting class coming in the Pac-12. I know they don't kill it on the recruiting front, but when you're dead last, that's a tough thing to overcome. So it kind of evens out for me. About the same.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, Brent Pry at Virginia Tech. I feel worse. 3-8 year. I'll admit they had 3 losses by 3 or less, but still they regressed in SP Plus 70th to 96th. The recruiting finished 40th overall, and the Hokies. Ryan, you've mentioned this in the past that the Hokies are capable of a class much better than that. Grant Wells is back at quarterback, but the offense was really bad. They've got Kyron Drones, the Baylor transfer, coming in to compete. Like, I'm not really enthused with Pry at the moment.
No, there's not a lot going on there. It's pretty rough. I mean, they lost to Old Dominion start off the season this past year. One ACC win against BC. It wasn't the toughest schedule. Just not a whole lot of positives. And this is I always say, like, your first full recruiting class should be your best, or at least should have some reasons to be really good, because you can sell, hey, I'm new. There's going to be some momentum. There's maybe some opportunities for playing time. The first season results shouldn't matter all that much, but this one was just a bad class. It's not good.
Yeah, and obviously the team was bad last year, and it's not like they're bringing in a great transfer haul to kind of quickly turn things around. They're going to have to do a great coaching job, so we'll see. But yeah, you got to feel worse.
No doubt. All right, let's get the positives going here. I think we got a couple of positives coming in the next couple here. We got Joey McGuire at Texas Tech. Feel better about him. 8-5 in his first season, so a good job to get to 8 wins. They finished the year with 4 straight wins. And if you just count the future Big 12 teams, finished 3rd in recruiting for the 2023 class, so that's a good thing. And he just he has a good connection with the guys. He has a good connection with the high school coaches down there. Things just kind of seem to be positive. It seems like everybody's really on board with him as far in that program. Yeah. So that's a huge point. Just ask Auburn coach Brian Harsin about that. So yeah, I'm feeling better about him.
100%. And the fans are 100% behind Joey McGuire. Everything's positive. And so he went 5-4, or they went 5-4 in Big 12 play this year. The last head coach to have a winning record in Big 12 play at Texas Tech, Mike Leach.
Wow.
Leach's final season.
Kingsbury was never good. And
wow. Yeah, there's just a little bit of a buzz with Texas Tech now. And hey, they whipped Ole Miss in the bowl game. That was good.
Yeah.
Okay. Kalen DeBoer at Washington. I've been a huge Kalen DeBoer fan for a few years, probably ever since that. Well, I mean, going back to his first stint as offensive coordinator at Fresno, did a great job, and then at Indiana, and he just does great everywhere he goes. So I liked the hire, but even I'm feeling better than I did when it was made. Took over a team that was 4-8, just a mess under Jimmy Lake. They were 11-2 this season, nearly made the Rose Bowl. Just all positive. He's one of those coaches in that, like, Lincoln Riley, Sonny Dykes, Ryan Day mold, where the offense is going to be good with him. You just know it.
Yeah.
So feeling good.
Yeah, leading that arguably the best passing attack. And they also returned a fair amount in 2023. So there's some real hope and expectations this year. So yeah, I'm feeling better. Penix is going to be on Heisman lists. Now, I guess the question is, how does he do when he has expectations? That's what we'll kind of start to find out.
And can he kind of keep up a little bit when the recruiting front with Oregon? Like that's going to be the main competition. USC is going to be gone. UCLA is going to be gone. Can he keep up with Oregon? Because this year they didn't. They are pretty far behind as far as recruiting. He needs to kick it up a notch to truly compete with them.
Yeah. They're not gonna. Well, they're likely not gonna equal them, but you'd like to close that gap a little bit.
Yep.
All right, Brent Venables at Oklahoma. I'm about the same on him. I think the average person might look at their 6-7 record and say he's not good, or they'd be feeling worse. But he recruited so well in that transition class that he had. I'll admit, going 6-7 isn't ideal, but the last 4 losses were each by 3 points. The team's strength overall was still top 25. Now Venables brought in the 4th-ranked high school class this year. Dylan Gabriel's back, so I'm still encouraged by Venables.
I agree. I'm staying about the same here. I know it's hard to look past the losing record, but going into the year, I was low on them as a team just because I knew what they lost. I knew they lost Caleb Williams. I knew they lost some other pieces around them on offense. It was just they lost their defensive coordinator. There was a lot of new and a lot of challenges for Venables, so that just
addition by subtraction, losing the D coordinator. Come on, you're bringing in Brent Venables.
Fair enough. But it's just a whole new system is tough when you have new players. It was tough. I thought there was just too much change for them to be like a really good team. And I wasn't super high on Gabriel to begin with, but what he did recruiting wise and what they have coming back this year, they'll be much better. So I'm feeling about the same. I still think they're going to be good in the future.
All right. I hear you guys. And I thought about doing about the same, mostly because of the recruiting, like Trey said, but I got to say worse. Like, Lincoln Riley's worst finish in the past 5 years there was 10th in the AP poll, and going 6-7, like, it's not like they had 10 starters transferring. It wasn't some mass exodus. They still had some good players there. Like, they shouldn't have been going 6-7. So, I don't know. I feel a little bit worse, at least. I still think they're going to obviously dramatically improve from this, but I feel worse.
Well, you definitely can't feel better. I would say that. So
no.
All right. Moving on to Dan Lanning at Oregon. After week 1 of this past season, I felt much worse. They lost 49-3 to Georgia and just looked absolutely pathetic. But then they went on to win 10 games on the season. So it was a good first year for Lanning. Top 10 recruiting class, best in the future, Pac-12. So I actually feel better on him. He did a great job, kept up the recruiting, did a good on-field product. The offense just looked really, really good. Bo Nix was near Heisman type caliber, so feel good.
I agree. With such a young guy, first time head coach, and was coaching under Kirby Smart, so you just didn't know what to think of him. And you're right, everything's just continuing. Everything's great. Recruiting's great. Like, I don't see many negatives to say. And the hire of offensive coordinator Kenny Dillingham ended up turning out extremely well. So obviously he's gone now, but I'm nothing negative to say.
Yeah. I like you, Michael. I didn't give him a ton of credit being Georgia's defensive coordinator just because it was Kirby's D, but I'm clearly higher on him now. Dramatically improved.
And the defense wasn't good at Oregon, to be fair, but you think that'll get better.
The team overall improved, so it's a great start to his tenure.
Okay, Sonny Dykes at TCU. I'm feeling a little bit worse. What a chump. They were so
There's
lucky last year.
nowhere to
No.
go but down. So
That's true. That's true.
you know.
He did the anti Matt Rule. Matt Rule goes
Yeah.
1-10 in his first year. That is
Yes.
just what he
Yeah.
does.
Yep.
Set the bar low, nowhere to go but up. But he's doing the opposite. No, it was this hire, I liked it for TCU, but I didn't think it was a home run. I thought it was kind of had I didn't think the ceiling was incredibly high, but as it turns out, the ceiling was making it to a national championship game. So that was great. And recruiting's going super well.
So I am obviously feeling better, but I'm a little reluctant to say I'm feeling like incredibly better just because everything did bounce their way last year and now they lose a ton. They're going to have to, probably strike gold in the transfer portal again, continue to develop. Now he's always going to have, you mentioned it earlier, Michael, he's one of those guys. He's always going to have a pretty good offense, like no question. And they are in a good position in the new Big 12 to potentially be one of those premier teams in that league if they're able to keep it up. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but I'm almost in this kind of wait and see mode as far as like, how he can start to back up that amazing run last year.
Yeah, it's easy to get persuaded by one season when it can turn around pretty quickly in the college football, but got to feel better. The number one recruiting class in this future Big 12. So come on, got to feel good.
We'll get to we'll do our head coach rankings, I think in a few weeks here. But I did see, I don't know if it was Stuart Mandel or someone had, I think Sonny Dykes 10th. Don't quote me on this, but something like that. And I'm with you, Trey, in that sense. It's like we still have a kind of a long track record of Sonny Dykes being a good coach, but not like elite. So I'm not ready to put him there quite yet, but obviously
it's like the Eddie Orgeron kind of experience. Like, it can go south pretty quick. Like, you can strike gold.
But it's not going to go that south for it's. Well, this is weird. It almost feels like we're being negative about Dykes.
Yeah, no,
with Orgeron, he had proven nothing. Dykes has proven a lot. It's just this was obviously an extreme year.
I just didn't want I didn't want to overreact to that 1 year. That was my point. All right, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. I'm feeling this one. He was tough to kind of gauge. For me, feeling a little worse. Last year for me, there was some excitement because the talk was he could really elevate the recruiting from the Brian Kelly days and levels. Still could be the case for sure, but now it's going to be up to him to develop that talent once they do. In SP Plus, they dropped from 30 to 37th in SP Plus, going 9-4. Starting out with losses to Ohio State, that's fine, of course, but then Marshall, and they also lost to Stanford during the year. I will admit he righted the ship, halfway towards the back end. That's encouraging. But now they lose Tommy Rees, their offensive coordinator. They lose Michael Mayer. And they bring in Sam Hartman, who it feels like there's going to be a lot of weight on his shoulders this year.
Good man.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I actually feel about the same. I wouldn't say I'm worse. 9 wins is nothing to scoff at in your first season, taking over for a guy that had been there for about a decade. Brian Kelly, just a great coach. So I don't want to sell him short. That's not bad, especially when you lose to Marshall. Turning it around was a good job, and I think he has turned it up a notch. I mean, finishing 11th last year, they're bringing in some really good, highly rated players. Is it elite? Maybe not quite, but I think he's going to do still a pretty good job. I'm still feeling about the same.
I'm feeling about the same too. I thought about worse also, Trey, but I guess a significant drop off is to be expected when you lose a great coach like Brian Kelly. I don't have
the legend.
Marcus Freeman anywhere near that level. So about the same.
All right, moving on to Billy Napier at Florida. They lost to Vanderbilt, so I feel worse. Sorry. No, but 6-7, not a good first season. Finished the year really poorly. They have the 7th rated recruiting class in the SEC, counting Texas and OU. So that's, not quite good enough. I mean, it's you want to be top 5. Hopefully, if you're Florida, they certainly have the potential to do that. And then you got, of course, the recruiting drama a little bit with their quarterback, Jaden Rashado. That wasn't good. So there's some kind of negative vibes going on in Gainesville that, maybe it's a little bit out of Napier's control, some of those things, but it's just not good. So I say I feel worse.
I 100% agree. I was very high on Billy Napier,
Yes.
and so I'm feeling much worse here. Yeah, disappointing 6-7 season. Lost a lot of members from his staff. Quarterback
Yeah.
position, as of right now, is looking
Yeah.
questionable headed into next year. O-line has lost a lot. Lost some starters that were gonna, lost some players that were gonna start
Yeah.
or play significant snaps. So I don't know. It's just he needs to outperform
Oh yeah.
expectations this year, because I think the fans are already
Yeah, he could be gone after a
questioning
year
him.
too. He could pull a Willie Taggart.
He definitely has 2 and out potential. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have nothing more to add for him. I totally agree with what you guys said. It's feeling a little worse.
Okay, Mario Cristobal
Oh, boy.
at Miami. Boy, how things have changed in Florida. Suddenly Florida State's the one that everyone's
Yeah.
very positive on. But, I know it's crazy given he inherited a solid team that seemed ready to go. Like, they should have competed for the Coastal, and they had a terrible 5-7 season. They lost to Middle Tennessee. But I am tempted to say about the same, because I just feel like he's just going to – the recruiting is going just as he expected. He's got the investment. He's going to keep bringing in 25 high school, highly rated high school players every year, and they're going to build a great roster. So I feel like they're going to compete for ACC titles in a few years, or, soon enough. But I got to say worse. It's because when it goes so bad on the field in year one, and the offense, his effect on the offense, and Tyler Van Dyke, just not great. So that is worrisome, given, the Justin Herbert underachieving at
Yeah.
Oregon as well. So anyway, I'm probably not as low as maybe some people, but yeah, I do feel a bit worse.
I hear what you're saying. I'm feeling worse. And you mentioned all the recruiting, and yes, he can recruit like crazy, and he probably will continue to do so with all that commitment behind him, and so he can elevate the floor, no doubt. But I mean, and especially looking at this year, you mentioned firing Josh Gaddis. They also have a turnover with their defensive coordinator. He bolted, Kevin Steele. So it's kind of like they're almost like starting over again as a team in year two. So he's going to really need to develop those recruits and start to show some progress on the field this year. Otherwise, if they don't, those great recruiting classes aren't going to follow year after year.
Yeah, this one was pretty simple to me. I feel worse. Just recruiting went about what I expected. I expected him to kill it, especially with all the money they have. But then the on-field was terrible. So, I mean, you got to feel worse. Nothing was better than I thought. So I feel worse.
Yeah.
Yep. Brian Kelly, LSU. So I'm feeling better. I knew he was a great coach, but I had a slight worry about his potential fit in Baton Rouge. But man, after year one, it was silly to have that worry, I think. He could talk in a fake accent all he wants. If he continues to improve like they did last year. Like, no one saw them winning the West, knocking off Alabama.
Yeah.
He did a great job with the Arizona State transfer, Jaden Daniels. He just got so much out of last year's team, and they have the pieces to kind of build around too this upcoming year. They got Harold Perkins at linebacker, brought in a top 5 recruiting class. So definitely feeling better about Brian Kelly.
Yeah, it was better all the way around on the field and recruiting, what they have coming back. Because like you, Trey, I had some reservations about it. I didn't know if it was going to work out like entirely. And I mean, it's still up in the air, of course, but awesome start. So I feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. The one small question I had with him was recruiting. Is he going to recruit at that elite level? Because at Notre Dame, he didn't. And you thought, was that Notre Dame's fault? Was that his fault? And then, especially early in the cycle, Marcus Freeman takes over as head coach, and very early, Notre Dame was like the number 1 class. We knew they'd fall somewhat, but they actually fell more than we expected. But at that point, it was like, ooh, like that's not a great look for Brian Kelly. But things reversed there, and yeah, you got it. I feel better for sure about Brian Kelly. Oh, last one here. Last one.
Yeah.
We've got Lincoln Riley at USC. I am a USC fan. And I feel about the same, which is maybe weird to say, given he took over a 4-8 team, and ended up nearly making the playoff. Like maybe if Caleb Williams doesn't get injured on that play, they might have made the playoff. Right. But I thought recruiting would be a bit better than it was. I thought he'd dominate Southern California for recruits more than he did. And the class finished 8th with their most recent commitment here. So it's not like it's bad, but I thought it had the potential to be a bit better than that. And even just, I thought maybe it could be more balanced, because it really is, of course, I mean, heavy players, receiver, running back, quarterback. You knew he'd be great there, but I thought maybe be a little bit better on in the trenches and defensively in recruiting. So it's like I feel better about USC being a consistent top 15 team than I did a year ago, but I feel worse about them winning a national title. So that's why I kind of feel about the same.
It's just year one, Mike. It's just year one.
No, I'm that's about the same. Like
I hear you. And I'm actually kind of the same. I'm the same. I'm still high on him. And last year was just so amazing, producing a Heisman winner. It's almost unfairly becoming assumed that he's just going to have a Heisman finalist every year. And and you mentioned that they were a game away from the playoff. Like, that's pretty amazing. He had to completely overhaul that roster, and did it obviously with a lot of transfers from what he inherited. I guess the only thing that doubters could point to is, at this point, will he improve the defense, and can he take the recruiting, what you just already laid it out, from really good to great? But either way, he's already made SC better.
Yeah. And taking over a new program is it's challenging. And I mean, we saw him at OU and he always had those great offenses, but that's where he was. Like, that's where he OU had been dominating even before he got there. So this was kind of a new challenge for him, taking over a team that wasn't good. He hadn't done anything like that before. So to prove that he could take a bad team and turn him into Pac-12 championship type team, like right away, amazing. I think I feel better about Lincoln Riley. His on the field coaching was he proved that he really is a great coach. At OU, he was a good coach, no doubt about it, but he just solidified it in my eyes. Like, yeah, he's legit for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the College Football Bros. Thank you for listening and watching. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up on YouTube. Leave a comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe. As always, trying to grow the channel, so we'd really appreciate that. And we will see you next time.